It's early morning and we're about to leave Lagos on the very southwest point of Portugal and head round towards Lisbon. Great forecast for the day. We've got the most about 4 or 5 mile an hour northerly winds and blue skies all day. It's a balance when you're doing a trip like this, because when you find a place like Lagos, you'd love to stay, but when the conditions are good, you've got to grab them and keep rolling, because you could equally get stuck in some hole of a port for a week, 10 days when the weather comes in off the Atlantic. Anyway, it's about 7 in the morning, we've done the engine checks, had a coffee, time to head north. The often wicked Portuguese coast had caused me more concern than Biscay when planning the trip. Swell's the problem here. It can get huge, and when it kicks in, many of the harbours and river estuaries are too dangerous to enter. In addition, the prevailing winds are from the north, so we would be heading directly into them. Availability of fuel also became a very real issue for us. At the huge cruise ship and fishing port of Lisbon, the marina told us that they had no diesel available, and my total inability to speak Portuguese made sourcing any from the fishermen highly unlikely. But a phone call to Pavo de Varzim, the next marina to the north along the coast, resulted in one of those incredibly generous gestures that I've occasionally encountered on my travels. No, they didn't have a fuel pump, but they would be happy to find some barrels and take us into town in their van so we could fill up at a local petrol station. Massive thanks, guys. While strong winds trapped us in the picturesque Galician village of Combaro for a couple of days, it was no hardship, as the ancient cobbled alleys seemed to have a magic of their own. As did its tiny bars, where the welcome was warm and the snacks provided for free.
Take the camera on in every place we go, so we get this kind of...
This whole region is worthy of many weeks' exploration, but as soon as the wind dropped, we were moving on. Passing the grimly named Costa da Morte uneventfully, the coast of death, and after overnighting in A Coruña, we pulled into one of my favourite harbours on the North Spanish coast, Zumaya. Well, this isn't exactly the sweetest place that we've had lunch, because we're tied up to a fuel dock. And the reason we're tied up to a fuel dock is that the people here keep the usual Spanish hours. They're closed between 1 o'clock and 3 o'clock, so we're waiting for the guy to come back with his lunch, and we can hopefully get some fuel. The last 2 days has felt more like a boat delivery job than an actual voyage of exploration, because we're on the north coast of Spain now. The forecast was good, and we've just been gunning it along. We've covered about 300 miles. Conditions haven't always been good. There's been some weird chops and choppy winds, but today we've done about 150 miles already, and we're about 30-40 miles from the French-Spanish border. Leaving Zumaya in almost perfect conditions, we were all now thinking about just getting the boat home as fast as we could. The river we're heading up now forms the border between Spain and France. The Spanish town on the right is called Hondarribia. Is that right? Hondarribia. And the French town on the left is easier for me to say, Onde. I think that's the pronunciation. And the river forms the boundary between the two of them, and it's tucked right in the corner of Biscay, so you've got so many places you can actually explore from here, going along the French coast or going west along the North Spanish coast. It's a beautiful evening, end to a perfect day. It also gave Fionn a chance to use the drone. We'd had so many windy and stormy days that this was the first real chance to get a bird's eye view of our marina for the night. Our luck ran out 150 nautical miles further north.
After a very sketchy entrance into the Gironde, with a force 8 hot on our stern, we left Cecienne in Royan and returned home. From then on, anxiously scanning every forecast we could find in order to complete the trip.
Well, we made it back home late last night, just a couple of hours ahead of this storm that was coming in off the Atlantic. The boat had been stuck in Royan for a couple of weeks. We'd had to leave it there because there was low after low coming in across Biscay. Storms, force 7, force 8, there was no way we were going to be able to move it. And then we saw a tiny little window in the weather. So we headed down to Royan on Thursday. It's now first thing Monday morning, and we got back to Falmouth Sunday night. It's blowing a hoolie out here. Literally, we could see on the forecast it was going to blow up as we were coming across. But we had a great crossing, big swell as we came across the channel. We did the long route from the Ushant across, basically, and from the very tip of North France. And we did it in about 4 hours. The boat was fantastic, and it's good to be back home in Falmouth now.